What is going on, Sooner Nation? Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Barry and Mack Show. As always, myself, Barry, personal trainer, sports performance coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And alongside me, former Sooner wide receiver, 2000 national champ, Mr. Damian Mackey. How are we doing tonight, D-Mac?
Actually, this morning, if we're gonna be
Technically,
technical, it's gonna be in the morning.
that's
I
right.
just thought about it would sound so much older if you said 1999 national champ. So I appreciate the 2000. In fact, had we won the Natty the 99 season, I would have been like, bro, we won the Natty in 2000. So either way, I think I'm
That's
good
right.
because we won the Natty in January 2001.
That's right.
But it was just a 2000 season. But I'm doing good. You know, let's crank this thing out, man. Get on these backers, have some conversations about why I like our position group, the linebacker position group a ton, and how guys being program guys are going to provide a lot of flexibility and our ability to mix and mingle a ton because we got guys that are willing to compromise and sacrifice probably being the man in order to have a really solid and depth field group. So
Great point. I hope you guys mix and mingle on the way over to OUinsider.com. Go check out everything that the gang is doing over there. OU team, recruiting news, everything. The board is buzzing. Been posting over there. D-Mac's been posting over there. A lot of feedback in the comments down below, too. So if you guys don't like an opinion, or if you do, let us know in the comments down below. It's been great. A lot of good feedback. Feel like the show, since we've moved to YouTube officially and become a part of OU Insider, obviously the brand has grown, because how can you not grow from being part of such a good organization like OU Insider and all the stuff that Brandon and Parker have done and the resources provided. But you're right, D-Mac, possibly talking about one of the best, and if not best, at least it feels like the deepest, most talented room on paper on the team, right? And when I say that, we're just talking about the 1, 2, 3, the first guys on the field, and then those two coming in right behind. And we're going to be, of course, talking about Cheetah as well. So guys like Kendall Dolby will play a factor into this conversation, right? Even though he feels like, OU has done the big Cheetah, small Cheetah thing with Dason to Dolby. Dason a little bit more like your Isaiah Simmons type, Dolby a little bit more like your Ryan Carter when he played at Clemson. Just so a little bit different feel in the style of defenses that you can deploy. But just a few names, and I'm going to start with this first one because Twitter was buzzing, or X as they call it. Still can't get to calling it X, man. X was buzzing because I screenshotted a capture of old Kip Lewis, man. And my favorite comment, there were two of them. One, they said that they thought they thought it was Kobe McKenzie because Kip's rolling out with the braids this year, or at least it looked like it. And my other one that was just great was they said, "When did Kip Lewis eat Kip Lewis?" And I thought that was absolutely fantastic. But Kip looks like he's put on some size. He's OU has him listed officially at 221, which means he's probably somewhere in that ballpark. May go into the season a little heavier, a little lighter. But again, last year, it did not seem to affect his performance until he got in like very specific matchups. And we talked a little bit pre-show, certain schemes where they were able to climb up to him and really take him away. And obviously, you'll probably discuss that in this episode. But Kip Lewis, huge factor going into this year. Danny Stutzman, so we're kind of burying the lead. He should be a Butkus finalist. Should have been a finalist last year, I felt, with how he played in season. Maybe the games missed might have hurt him, right? Had the injury against Oklahoma State and missed Kansas game as well. Was a big factor in both of those losses. You've got Lewis Carter coming in as a guy who, in the spring game, to me, looked incredibly explosive. Kobe McKenzie, who, when he arrived on campus, we had heard some things through the grapevine, coaches kind of discussing that maybe he didn't have the feet to play the D1 game, it looks like that is something that has improved, right? He's a guy who has had the self discipline. He's probably had to really dial in his nutrition, right? He was bigger, badder, stronger than everybody he was playing against in high school, and the speed didn't matter quite so much. He was fast enough. But man, when you got to be able to handle everything coming at you and got to be able to move at a different clip, that D1 speed and the D1 quickness and reaction time that you've got to have, it's just a different deal. Right. So we're going to obviously talk about him. Sammy Omasigo, another guy who really didn't see the field a whole lot other than special teams a year ago, and has some good special teams plays. He was on
Yeah.
kickoff coverage. I believe played a little kick return. I think he was also on punt return. I don't know if he was on punt team. I actually don't think he was on there, but definitely a kickoff coverage guy who's just a big hitter, plays the game very, very fast, and had some moments in the spring game as well. Another guy who just plays really long, and Jaron Kanik. I'm sure he's going to be discussed in this episode. We've talked about him already in other shows this off season, and we talked about him a ton a year ago. But DMAC, backers, deep position group, a group that people feel, and Phil Picciotti. They need to make sure I mention him. He was a guy brought in last year, suffered an injury, but this year probably we'll see sometime, especially early on in the year. We'll see if he makes it into the rotation. Maybe he's kind of a spot duty guy who felt like maybe what McKenzie was a year ago. Certain matchups, certain teams. Maybe he's a guy who you want to bring in and deploy. But grading this position on paper, which is all we're doing right now because they ain't played a single game. We're barely into fall camp. Give us your thoughts on the linebacker position. What do you think the initial starting and then that first group behind them will look like? And how do you think they're going to fare in the SEC now that the game has changed? The competition level has taken an uptick. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, exciting. I think 28 and what's number is Kip? 11? Is that right? Is Kip 11?
10, 10, 10,
Is he
10,
10?
10.
Oh, that's why I like him because he's my old number. Okay.
Yeah.
So those two guys have separated themselves. Um it's interesting because Danny's a leader. He's a guy who's going to make impactful plays. He's a guy who is kind of like the emotional temperament of the team. When he's playing well, he actually that energy it permeates into his teammates. And so, you know, guys like that, you just don't have guys like that every cycle. You just don't. Sometimes you just have dudes who just go out there and do their job. But Danny has kind of like an intangible
Hmm.
that helps him because the other thing Danny has is a propensity to bust. He actually is a guy who there are times where he doesn't get to the correct shoulder. There are times where he just isn't fundamentally sound. And by the way, no guy's ever fundamentally sound every time. But I know that's an area Danny wants to correct. And I'm sure he's watched a ton of film. And he's gonna do it. Like Danny is a guy that you want a middle backer like him in your program every year if you can have one. But he's not perfect. And so I'm looking at Danny. I'm like perfect. The beauty is Danny's weaknesses are Kip's strengths. Kip was light in the ass, but Kip is a guy who sees it. His instincts are extremely uncanny. His natural ability, he's a guy you can tell who is fast, but he plays fast. And what I mean by that is he grabs ground and takes away angles from linemen, from tight ends. He beats people to angles and crashes things down so that plays don't have time to develop. And then he can catch you in space. And so, and he plays bigger than he is when he's tackling.
Yeah.
Right. I think his
Yeah.
biggest issue was, man, if that guard gets on him, they pull that they run that power or they run that inside zone and they double off him or they double off that three and come up to him. I mean, KU and Oklahoma State, I mean, I couldn't even say nothing because I was a huge Kip advocate last year, and in
Yeah.
those two games, there were just plays where like he was the link. They were running right at him, and they were rooting his ass out of that B gap every time. So, but he looks bigger. I remember you sent that to me, and I was like, bro, that looked like a backer. That looked like an SEC backer, and I'm not,
Doesn't
not
look like a
surprised.
safety no more.
That yeah,
Yeah.
long neck backer. He definitely. So I wasn't surprised when that group blew up because it was really easy to see. He jumps off the screen, right? If you look at everybody's scouting report on Kip, Kip is like a natural. His instincts are very, very
Yeah.
good. And so him and Danny together make a strong tandem. Two guys I'm gonna bring up next, both to me, and I hope I don't raise any concerns with people. I'm just kind of put in the atmosphere. But I felt like watching film and body types and physical nature that Lewis Carter was like, whoa, this is a guy who, he literally like jumps off the page. And I always said, man, he is the prototypical Georgia backer. Like, go watch Georgia
Yeah.
backers the last 8 years. They're not a bunch of 6'4" dudes like the Bama guys from 15 years ago that were huge. The Georgia backers are 6'1", 228. They look like running backs on defense and they'll knock your ass off, right? They're smart, they're physical, they're tough. Well, that's what Lewis Carter looks like. So it'll be interesting to see this season if he has an integral role on the defense. Special teams, he and Samuel did their thing, and they were guys who could be dependent on. But I feel like this is a year where if he has some it to him, that he's going to get meaningful snaps and he's going to make meaningful plays. On the other side of the coin, this is year 3 for Kanik. If the light bulb don't, by the way, it can't be a glimmer. It can't be faded. It can't be sometimes. The room's too talented. The room is too
Yeah.
talented. If Kanik doesn't show that he can consistently just be sound, just be sound, do what you're supposed to do. Take your read steps. If the guard blocks down, replace. Right. If the guard tries to reach, scrape. Like this is stuff I never played backer. I know backer stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's not difficult. If it's a pass tree and you see somebody run a speed out, look for somebody coming in. They're trying to stretch you so they can throw the slant behind you. Like these are things that we need to see Kanik make quicker decisions on. And then the other thing is, I've said it for 2 years. His feet are in cement. You can literally see everybody else is playing football and he's still standing still trying to read what's happening. He's not going to have that luxury this year. There are tons of other guys who can play the position and he'll find himself at the end of the bench. He'll find himself being an L4 or an R4. If you don't know what that is, it's the fourth guy on kickoff. And their job is just to run straight to the football, be the fastest guy on the field and go
Mhm.
hit it. Russell Dennison is a guy who comes to mind.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, uh,
Yeah.
Lewis,
Who
what
never
was
played really a bunch of meaningful, but was still a
but
huge
he
part of the
was a
team.
killer on special teams, right? Just comes to
Yeah.
mind like Russ was a guy who would, by the way, CI, Clint Ingram was a guy who did that until his junior and senior year. Those L4, R4 guys, 2 away from the kicker, and they literally make a beeline to the ball. That could be a place kick, a punt, him being a wing on punt protection, right? But like
Hmm.
he's got to show more IQ as a backer for a guy that they can depend on. Also, because you've got guys like McCullough. And again, I just think what he um what he brings to the table and what he was asked to do last season um were like, I'm gonna use my old school analogy, apples and doorknobs. He's a
Yeah.
guy who's probably the most physically talented guy coming forward between the B gap off the edge. I don't know
Yeah.
me, and I don't know. I don't know the answer, but like to me, it just seems to me on third and long, he should be a stand-up edge. Imagine a guy who the tackle has to say, holy shit, he's coming, but he's also spry enough and athletic enough to buzz the flat, to sink, right? To carry somebody. If he could be a guy who lines up on the edge. Two is running a go route, he can carry two so they can't throw that drive ball and it gives a safety enough time to get over the top. Two runs a corner route, he can just trail two and run the corner underneath it.
Yeah.
Like it just seems
He
to
has the
me
length to do that. Yeah. He
he
takes that
plays
away.
he plays big cheetah. So like that's an extra, and that's an SEC type skill set
Hmm.
I'll be interested to see if we deploy in some capacity this season. If we do, I'm gonna pat myself on the back again, because it just makes too much sense to me. And we don't
Yeah.
have another guy who can do that except Kip, and Kip is our will. Like he's a second level defender. Kip's not an on the line defender like McCullough can do, but
Wow.
McCullough can also be depth at the second level. He can play Will. He can play Mike in a pickle.
Yeah.
The beauty is he won't need to because McKenzie's got 3 years of reps now. And he hasn't played tons of game reps, but he's had to play when Stutz was hurt. He's had some games where he stepped up. He had some games where he filled in and was taking on those guards and wasn't getting canceled like Kip was. So again, when you build a program correctly, We talked about this in the last pod, right? And you've got guys who you're not trying to cheat the system and get rich quick, right? And throw money and gold at everything, but you build a program. Guys like McKenzie, like you said, they lose a little baby fat. They get a little grown man strength. They're 3 years in, so they understand how to keep their feet underneath them and use quickness in ways where they have ability, and they're in a premier training program like the one Schmitty runs, and 3 years into the program, they are quicker, right? They are more instinctual, and he's physical. He'll form tackle your ass. And so going into the
Mm-hmm.
SEC, having a guy like Mickey Kobe is a really good thing to have. Um, Picardi, I don't know. He's an unknown for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be backer is generally a position where OU plays, two groups, and you'll watch and see a guy like Stutz will never go out to come off the field, especially in a close game, right? A guy like Kip will probably play 75-25 with somebody like Carter, right? Someone they'll give
Mm.
another guy an opportunity to get some chances.
That's a crazy
Again,
lineup.
yeah, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
If Stutz gets tired, McKenzie comes in or McCullough comes in, right? And then I think McCullough's a guy you're using in a lot of flexible lineups to play Big Cheetah. I hope they put him on the edge some. Um, Obviously I saw him a couple times playing deep. I guess they were just trying to keep teams honest. Maybe teams come out in two back, and so they want the Big Cheetah in, but then based upon formation or whatever, they have him as a safety. Um, but we have a versatile group. I don't think they're the strongest group. I think wide receiver has a ton of guys who've actually done it, from Anderson to Anthony to Burks, even though he's coming from another school, to Farouk, who's been around forever, right? Like the receiver, and then obviously Gibson going down was in that group initially, but like that group, I saw some people complaining, but like I don't know, dude. That's a group that I would say I put them up against any receiver core in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I said they're probably three in the conference, but if you're top three in the SEC, you're top five in America. So I feel good about that group. The secondary, again, three safeties right now who are just ready to be beasts. Like we got three of them that are just like, there's you can just interchange them and they're gonna do well. And then corner, we got the depth going there. So back, I just feel really good about our backer position. I don't know if they're the number one overall position group, but they're a solid 94. You got star power. You've got a guy
Mm-hmm.
who's Kip's ready to be the next alpha. And then you got a guy like Carter who all of the intangibles and things that people say are the things that he possesses to be one of
Yeah.
those as well. We just gotta see it happen. Listen, when Kanik is your fourth, fifth option, and the kid's probably gotten 15 starts, the kid probably has 150 tackles. I don't know the
Dude.
exact number, but I
Got a
mean,
bunch. He's got a
yeah,
bunch.
yeah. Like when that's your third team dude, that position's in pretty good shape. So I look at the position. Here's what we have. Here's what we have, Barry. We've got backers who can run. Kip Lewis was a 4-4 guy.
That's so true.
Kanik obviously is a 4-4 guy. Lewis Carter, go watch this film. He probably a 4-5 guy, but damn, 4-5 is moving,
Yeah, but I bet
right?
his 10-yard split might be the best in the group.
Like Sammy O, Carter, McCullough. Like McCullough plays so explosive, right? We just got to figure out how to use him as effective as possible. And I haven't even mentioned Danny, which Danny was probably the most athletic backer we had his freshman year, if you
Mm-hmm.
remember, right? When we had
Yeah.
White and some of them other guys, right? Danny was popping off the screen as a pup. So I look at this group and I say, going into the SEC again, they're just another group that I'm not terribly concerned are going to do bad. And when Kip came in at will. And by the way, do you remember how much grief people were giving me? Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm just
Yep.
telling you. I'm just telling you. When
Yeah.
he comes in, he settles the defense because he's the guy. Danny can go be risque. Danny can go be a stud, right? Go be the game changer because Kip's just going to be on the right side. When they run that zone, Kip's going to beat that guard and he's going to be to get there. When they run that boot, Kip's going to read it. He's going to see that backside tight end and he's going to carry it. So, like, the two of those guys together, man, that's a great recipe for a lot of three and outs, a lot of putting our defense in position to be attacking the line of scrimmage on their side. We talk about that 1 yard radius, right? If you want to know who's going to win a football game, find out where the ball is, and then at the height, at the snap of the ball, find out where most of this stuff is happening. If most of the stuff's happening 1 yard in the backfield, it's a high likelihood that the defense is controlling the game, and then vice versa. If the offensive line is pushing the defense 1 yard, then they're going to be, leaning on them. So the backer group makes me happy. It's like the receiver group. If someone goes down, not named Danny, there's somebody else that can come in and take their place. By the way, there's guys who can take Danny's place, but Danny is, again, he's a heartbeat. Danny's a
Alpha.
guy we want to see him stay healthy and be the lead dog on that team. Um, I think they have SEC talent. I think they have
Mm.
SEC speed. I've seen them tackle well enough. Man, 2 years ago, I used to be so concerned about our tackling at backer.
Oof.
We've
Yeah.
dramatically improved that outside of Kanik, and I think Kanik at a 3 is appropriate for him. Um, it's a group that I think can play championship caliber football.
Man, great stuff. I'll say a few things, and I'll first touch on the Dason piece. You know, the McCullough or a player like that, what was one of the reasons why OU went out and struggled against Georgia's and against Clemson's was they had a guy who could be that Swiss Army knife off the edge and took a lot of that stuff away, right? One of the things that you notice whenever OU went to play these better defenses was just the space that was there in the Big 12 was no longer there, right? The space to hit some of the easy stuff became very, very difficult. And he's a guy who I agree. I thought and I was a little bit criticized. I didn't think he had the feet when he arrived at OU to be able to play in space in the way that some people thought he might be able to,
You said that.
particularly.
I remember you said that.
And he just and it's not a knock. It's just he's got abilities that are different than what other guys have. But at that time, you didn't have a Lewis Carter. You didn't have a Kip Lewis as we know Kip Lewis to be today, right? Sammy O, we'll see how he develops, right? He's a guy who very athletic, right? I think might be one of those guys again who's better going forward than he is going side to side. We'll
We'll see.
see with him.
We'll see.
Lewis Carter, in my opinion, probably the next big time linebacker at Oklahoma, right? From you mentioned it, the intangible stuff, right? Just the vocal leadership, the kind of gutter mentality. He's strong, probably the strongest backer in the room.
He
From what
is.
I've heard, strongest
He is
backer in the room,
for sure.
right? Just benching crazy numbers, and that stuff translates, man. That stuff, right? When you're taking on a guard who's got 70 pounds on you, that matters, right? How if you can move 405 around like it's not a big deal, chances are you could take on that guard, right? That's just the way sports performance works. But I think he's the most explosive out of a stance, right? Going any direction, omnidirectional, right? He's a guy who can go back, go forward, go right, go left, hit a corner. He's a guy who can get where he needs to be in a hurry, right? Who can within that at linebacker, it's what can you do within a 7 yard radius, right? Like that's really what you're looking at is you don't need to be the fastest guy in 100 meters. You don't need to be the highest jumper necessarily, but you got to be a guy who can cover 7 yards faster than your counterpart. If you can do that, chances are you're going to be everywhere else that you need to be when that calls for. Talked about McKenzie at the top. He's a guy who, when it comes to getting quicker, especially when you get to the D1 game, you either have to make your feet better or your reaction time, your ability to read, see what's going on, process, and deliver has to get better. And usually if you've improved exponentially, right, where it seems like Kip is one of those guys who it wasn't linear, or not Kip, McKenzie. It wasn't linear. He made a pretty significant jump from that first year to last year. And then I think even more so this year, watching him in the spring game on his feet looked like a totally different guy, right? And it makes sense. It's year 3, right? It's a guy who first year you're learning what to do. Second year you're putting the tools in place and utilizing what you know to try and make yourself the best player possible. Um, Lewis, I think he is a guy who I would not be surprised, depending on how. So Stutzman is going to be the guy who's going to get the notoriety just because of the, I don't want to call them antics because I think what he does is genuine, but he's does the Boz hair, had that video. Like Stutzman is the flash of the group, but also bringing some substance.
Yeah.
He's done that, but I think Kip Lewis is going to be the guy who, when teams are watching this year, and when a Todd McShay or a Mel Kiper is doing one of OU's big games, I think Kip is going to be a guy who they talk about who, if he can put on another 10 pounds, this is an NFL level backer. This is a guy who just moves. He's instinctual. He can play the new kind of game that's being played now at the NFL level, where you don't necessarily need 250-pound backers, right? You need guys who can move, who can scoot, who can play in space, who can cover that 7 yards, who can maybe follow a guy out of the backfield,
Yep.
do all the things necessary. I think the biggest jump that has to happen in the linebacker room is, and this is just all based on a year ago, and I think this is why Danny stood out, was Danny improved so much when it came to playing in pass coverage. And I don't think the other backers necessarily had that same improvement. Some of the subtle things, if you go back and watch the film, and I challenge everybody to do this, watch the amount of contact. Just watch Danny. Watch the amount of contact. Watch the way his head is moving on pass plays, how quickly he gets to his spot. This is the stuff to evaluate in film. Danny is making consistent contact. He's knocking guys off their routes. He's reacting very quickly and getting to where he needs to be. And he will probably tell you he still had room to grow when it came to playing in pass coverage. But when it came to overall ability, he was the best, right? And he impacted the game so much more. And as you said, when Kip came in and was the guy he was playing in tandem with, Danny improved even more so,
Yeah.
both run game but also in the pass game. So I think OU at backer is pretty well set, and you've got some ways to run some different packages out there, right? You saw Kip come in when OU had that goal line stop against Texas, who was one of the main backers out there on the edge, setting that edge, even though he weighed 210 pounds. It was Kip Lewis, right? He was a guy who was a part of that goal line package where they ran that three-backer set where you've got a Stutzman, a McKenzie, and a Lewis. And this is before Lewis was seeing the lion's share of the snaps. But in my opinion, the two Lewises, Carter and Kip, and I think they're going to end up being the prized picks of some of these recruiting cycles, and just goes to show too. And I think you saw it because one, you've played the game, you've seen guys arrive or get to Norman looking one way and then become something else. So I think it's almost like we have this recency bias of we haven't seen guys progress
Yeah, that's a good
from
call.
year 1 to 2 to 3. So we forgot what that looks like. Kip is just following the trajectory of a BV backer, right? You mentioned Clint Ingram, right? Even Rocky. Rocky was really good when he arrived, but Rocky, by the time he left in 2001, was legit, right? Teddy, same kind of deal. When Teddy arrived, there was some rawness to his game. By the time he left, he was legit. Curtis Lofton, he came in looking pretty good, playing pretty good, but he was also every one of those guys saw major progression in their games. They didn't arrive a finished product.
Yeah,
Um,
Kurt didn't really see the field until he was an upperclassman. Remember, Curtis Lofton was
that's
freshman
right.
starter. He
Yeah.
he 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 had one bomb year and went to the league. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it just what you're seeing is the vision that Venables had for that position. This was the year that it was going to be nut cutting time, right? You had to get to the SEC with depth at all these positions. And of course, in the subsequent episodes, we'll talk about DB, we'll talk about quarterback a little more in depth, right? We'll talk about cornerback. And then obviously maybe break down special teams just a little bit. But I think there's a lot to like about this upcoming season. Right now, DMAC, before we get out of here, if you were going to give, so take Danny out of the equation, right? Let's put him kind of in a different thing because I think he means something different to the culture, and he is the number one guy on that roster just for all of the things that he offers and brings to that position group. But if you were going to give me your top three NFL career backers who are currently on the roster, out of who is there right now, which three players going one, two, three are the most NFL ready or at least NFL looking guys or guys at least who will have some longevity or chance to be drafted in those higher rounds?
Um, I mean, so I'm torn between the Lewis brothers, right? Because Kip has shown it on film. We don't know if
Mm-hmm.
Carter is going to run around like a, space cadet. We don't know. So, but
Yeah.
Carter is your prototypical NFL backer 2024. Um, Lewis, wait, Lewis Carter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Lewis Carter. He's your prototypical. Kip, man, the picture you showed me of Kip is if he's gonna do another year or two, Kip sticks around for 2 more years.
Oh, yeah.
He's got just a high ceiling guy. I have had multiple coaches tell me like Kip is like this much slower than Cannick. By the way, Kip like gets on Cannick like I think I can beat you. So about if Cannick's claim to fame is his speed and Kip is right there, but Kip's instincts are off the charts, right? That says a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so you give me Kip, give me Lewis, and NFL dudes. It's interesting, right? Because I feel like McCullough is a prototypical 34 backer. If we're running a 34,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like McCullough would have a lot more versatility in this
Yeah.
defense as a 34 backer. I feel like Samuel is a guy who, again, the athleticism is there. We just need to see it. And so that'll be an interesting. By the way, I think they have him at Cheetah. And I want to speak to this because I didn't, and this is tangenting away from what you talked about, but I want to talk about Dolby. Um, Dolby made some splash plays. Dolby made some big plays for us. I think he won a game for us. I don't remember what game it was. Um, but Dolby has his issues too. And so even as just the small cheetah where he's playing nickel, let's just call it nickel because he's a DB playing that third backer position. I am going to be watching closely to see how he performs in his capacity. What I do know is he's physical enough to come downhill if he needs to tackle, which is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need your nickel. You need your cheetah, small or big, to be able to be an impact in the run game. He absolutely does a great job carrying. I love Dolby carrying routes. By the way, for those of you who don't know what that means, that just means you're under the route. You're taking away all of the driving throws on a seam, on a curl, on a corner route, right? That guy is turning and running with the receiver because he knows he has safety help over the top, right? Dobie's really good at that. He did a great job even in the Arizona game. He was one of the guys who was really a force, but he gets lost in zone. And so I'm going to be paying attention to him and seeing what he does because the rumor is Sammy O is the perfect blend of McCullough and Dobie, and he just had some rust and some really just experience that he needed to garner. But he's the type of guy who could be the true Isaiah Simmons, where it's like he doesn't need to leave the field. And so it'll be interesting to see if we graduate to that position and then we can have McCullough and some of those guys be the auxiliary pieces, the NASCAR third down piece, right? The additional big piece. And so again, that I think that's important to speak to as it relates to the backer room because it's what you said. There's so much versatility, right? If the cheetah position can have a DB and a guy who's kind of like a 34 backer and a guy who's like a more versatile, I'm talking about Sammy O now, like that makes that position very dangerous, especially when McCullough can then become a second level defender at Mike or Will. And then, right, you got your guy, Lewis Carter, who's coming off the bench, who I think is really going to be the man. Give me both Carters, give me Sammy O. Um, but man, McCullough too, because 34. I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Give me Samuel though. Give me Samuel. Give me Samuel.
Man, who was the guy who played? I guess it would have been the Sam position. Who he played, I want to say in like 9, 10, 11. That
Nelson?
Sammy O. Is it
Oh,
Nelson?
you talking about
No,
we
it
Samuel what?
Sammy O reminds me of this guy.
Oh, it's got to be it's Nelson. No, you don't think it's Nelson?
Is that yeah,
He's
that might
he's
be
the
who it
kid.
was.
He's the kid we got from A&M on signing day, and then he came and really
Yes.
played
Yeah.
well for us.
Yeah, really long, like plays long. Um, what wasn't like a super like thick build kind of guy, but just moved really well, hit well. Played low. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I think Sam very good going forward, like hit the gap. The kind of like read things really well. Just a solid. Was he the one who had the pick against Notre Dame? Is that what?
Oh, that was no, that wasn't Nelson. That was uh,
Hold on, I will.
so Corey Nelson came from Skyline, but I don't think he
No,
had the
then it
pick
wasn't
against
Corey Nelson. It was
Corey Nelson was a dog though.
yeah. Who was it? Oh
You
my, I
talking about
felt
like
like he played Sam.
you're not talking about like Travis.
No, it wasn't Travis Lewis. No. Hmm. Man.
You talking about
Golly, I wish.
you're not talking about Joseph Eboyle.
Nope, 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 nope. That's not it. That's not it. Maybe it was further back. Maybe it was 2008. Let's see here.
Mm,
2008, Oklahoma defense. Man, I gotta see who this would have been. Let's see here.
Rashad Favors.
Nah,
No,
nah.
I'm just looking
Oh
at
yeah,
some.
yeah, yeah. I was looking at some of the names. It's funny how
Yeah,
many names,
yeah.
man, that you forget, right? Your Moses Medus, right? Your
That's my little bro. I got love for
oh
him. I got love for
man,
him.
um,
Oh,
boy, Brent
are you talking about Keenan Clayton?
Keenan Clayton.
He was a
Yes,
dog. Keenan was a
yes, Keenan
dog.
Clayton. That's where,
Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly who I'm talking about. Not Corey
Okay.
Nelson. Not Corey Nelson. Yeah, Keenan Clayton.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Keenan was.
Sammy O to me has a little Keenan
I like that.
Clayton.
I like that. That's a good
Yeah.
comp. I like that
Um,
comp.
may not be an NFL guy. Keenan though, he had some I felt like he was a practice squad guy for a couple 2 or 3 years and
I don't
then
remember.
yeah, either way, played good football. Enough to help OU win big games, enough to help get it done. Sammy O got a little Keenan Clayton in him. That's interesting. Um, well, DMAC, good stuff, brother. We won't let this one run long. I felt we hit all the news in the other episode. Guys, all these episodes are going to be available in the portfolio. Go check out the Barry and Max Show YouTube channel. Go visit ouinsider.com. Check out everything the guys are doing over there. Just absolutely fantastic stuff. We're dropping the shorts. Make sure to go to the Instagram, follow us over there, follow us on X. We're putting out the short little clips every now and again. Make sure to post them, repost, share them, let people know to come check out the Barry and Max Show. We've had a lot of good comments. DMAC, have you had any comment on the YouTube side? Because to me, that's where some of the best stuff has been. The stinking Dion Burks, when you had the hold my beer in the episode, and the guy goes, he said Dion Burks has said hold my beer multiple times this offseason. Um, man, so some of the comments, guys, have been great. Any comment that stood out?
I listen. I mix it up in there for a day or two. I'll go in there and
Yeah.
respond for a couple of days, and then like I just went back. Like we got like 60 comments. I ain't got time to be responding to like 25
Oh
new
man.
comments.
Yep.
But no, man. YouTube's great. YouTube's fun.
Fun.
This is a passion project for me, man. I'm grateful that we've been able to keep this thing going for 3 years and have developed a relationship with Parker
That's
and
crazy. Yeah.
Brandon, those guys, and they take good care of us. I got to tell you, super
Yeah.
grateful for everything that they've done. I'll say this before we it's literally 1 a.m. But I'll say this. Season comes, guys, be prepared. We're gonna have our pre-game. We're gonna have our post game. Then obviously I'll do my 10 thoughts. Um, I'm gonna have it on the board. I don't know if they want me to do it exclusively on the board or how we're gonna do that. But then Barry and I will have our midweek. So expect us to drop minimally 2 times a week for sure on game weeks, probably 3 times a week on game weeks.
For
And
sure, right after the game, and we'll see. Maybe do even do a live one right after. We'll have to talk and see
yeah,
kind of what that would look
we'll
like.
figure out what that looks like. Yeah, but it's about to be season, guys. And one thing I'll say is everyone has always said our analysis and our thoughts on the actual game itself is, we're just telling our truth. You know what I'm saying? And so we're not on payroll from the program. Yes, half the damn coaches were my teammates or whatever, some capacity.
It's a
We
lot.
my coaches, they're either my coaches or teammates and stuff of that nature. So obviously,
Yeah,
I'm not in the position to be talking about program secrets and stuff, but I am going to tell my truth, and they don't pay me any money. So like, if I see it, I'm saying it. Like, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying, with all due respect and with all etiquette, and obviously not create any issues within the program. But
yeah.
season's here. And we got here's what we can't say this year. We can't blame lack of talent. The offensive line position, we'll see. The quarterback, he's gotta learn on the fly. He didn't get a ton of reps last season, but you can't ask for a better setup than what we have. The only thing that holds us back from being a guaranteed playoff caliber team, and this is by all the pundits. I don't give a damn, but the pundits are saying it. They're saying it's our schedule. They said if we had any of the 80% of the SEC schedules and anybody in another conference, we are solidified as a playoff team in a 12-team playoff. I think people are saying 9-3 gets us into the playoffs as well. I don't definitively see 3 losses on our schedule. We stay healthy. We play winning football like I know we can. This is a team that I said 9-3, 10-2. But like, again, going into the season, we are Oklahoma Sooners. I don't give a damn about the SEC. Our expectation needs to be to win. Period. 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 They posted all the damn historical data. We measure with everybody except Alabama. And we beat Alabama in some categories. All right. And Alabama claims like 17 toilet bowl natties that we just don't claim.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
don't
saying?
claim.
So there it is. I don't, I feel like year one, we have to come into this conference and put everybody on notice. And I feel like um, BV, Coach Venables, did what was necessary to give us a fair shot to do that.
Man, let me say one thing before we get out. And this like just hit me as you were talking. I think this is probably the first year that, one of the things that Venables was always really great with at Clemson, at Oklahoma, just an elite game planner, right? Elite with coming up with wrinkles and nuance and things to bring to the defense. And I think it's been two pieces as to why I think we've seen it in spots, right? The way OU came out and defended Florida State, who was a team that went undefeated the next year, and OU really held serve against basically was almost the same team, give or take a few important portal guys. But they were a very similar team, still had the same quarterback, right? And they went out there and they went unbeaten. Should have been in the playoff, right? Um, Venables hiring, and I think this is apropos that we're talking about this in the linebacker episode. Venables going out and hiring a defensive coordinator to take
Yeah.
that burden away from him, frees him up, in my opinion, to not only just be the CEO, head coach, do a better job. He's learning the position on the fly, but I think it also frees him up to do what is best, which is not have to worry about the bread and butter, right? He can get it, not have to worry about, the steak and potatoes. He can bring the dessert to the meal and say, we're playing Alabama this week. Here's something that we saw on film. Here's something that this football mind that's 3 decades into the game can say, here's what I think is going to be optimal in this matchup and that matchup. And I think he was a big piece in the early success of Stoops, right? And to Mike's sort of aggressive nature with things, but Venables very calculated, very methodical with how his approach is to the game. And, at Clemson, I think one of the games that stood out to me in terms of game prep, and people won't look at it that way because they ended up losing. But the way they dealt with Burrow in the first half of the LSU game, LSU just overwhelmed them with talent in the second half. Jefferson had an amazing game, and they just basically ended up they ran away with it. But that first half, you go watch how they played LSU. LSU was stuck in neutral and they took like Burrow was running for his life. They really did what was necessary. That was just a legendary team. A team that a
Yeah.
week earlier had just, or 2 weeks earlier, dismantled Oklahoma. So I think this frees up Venables to do what he needs to do, and us going over to OU Insider freed us up to do what we needed to do. Segue, man, they take care of us, man. They do a lot of good stuff. Go check them out. Make sure to follow us on X at BWise Fitness, at D_Mac13. Go over to the Instagram at the Barry and Mac Show. Follow me, BWise Fitness. Dame that dude. Sooner Nation, thank you so much for sticking with us. It's 1 a.m., so we're going to get the hell out of here. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you soon.